IBM and Microsoft, the future of manufacturing, in association with CNBC-TV18.com.
Hello and welcome to this exclusive roundtable discussion. IBM Microsoft present the future of manufacturing, intelligent, connected and sustainable, in association with CNBC-TV18.com. Well, to set the context, the Indian manufacturing industry is poised for transformation, fueled by the government's Make in India initiative, increasing global competition and a heightened focus on sustainable practices. Now, to stay ahead of the curve, manufacturers need to not only solve complex challenges but also unlock innovation and build a sustainable, intelligent enterprise for the future. So during this discussion, we'll address the best practices and pressing challenges faced by manufacturers and explore how the strategic partnership between IBM and Microsoft Azure can enable manufacturers to modernize operations with scalable, out-of-the-box solutions and leverage AI-driven technologies to build smarter, intelligent and connected enterprises that are also environment friendly. Of course, we are joined by a host of chief information officers, chief manufacturing officers and chief digital officers to deliberate on the big trends, advanced technologies and sustainability. So let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. Atanu, I'll start with you, especially when it comes to this topic of challenges, because you are the digital leader, you're the technology leader for an AgChem business, and your history has been in the pharma business. So I want to start this discussion by asking you on your thoughts around these challenges which smart manufacturing is looking to address, because when you're building POCs to solve issues for your enterprise, as Rahul had mentioned, whether we are looking at zero downtime, whether we are looking at safety, which is highly important for you, whether we are looking at maintenance, MRO, or whether you're looking at your vendor ecosystem. What are the interesting POCs that you're working at to address these challenges?
So the challenges in the AgChem scenario has been primarily, we have to constantly produce at a lower cost. So productivity, yield is extremely important. And globally, when we see the industry during COVID, there has been a lot of overproduction in the like Bayers, BASF, Syngentas of the world. Globally, there has been huge overproduction. So there is a lot of inventory in the supply chain, and there has been El Nino effect, which has changed the the rainfall patterns in some of the large markets like Brazil, and therefore the consumption has been less. So there is large inventory, and all the AgChem companies have been adversely impacted. We are fortunate that we have been able to manage our supply chain well. So of the 20 top companies globally, we are the only profitable. All other companies, Bayer, BASF, Syngenta of the world, they have been making losses because of that. But the El Nino effect is shifting. So now the rainfall patterns are becoming more predictable. And our demand, in our industry, the demand is lot linked with the rainfall, moisture, because the pests happen when there is moisture and temperature at a certain thing. And hence, it is the demand forecast is very dynamic. Like, okay, in Karnataka, there will be, this much of moisture, the weather condition happened, and then the pest attack will happen at that point of time. So you need to have the inventory available at that point of time.
So within the factory floor, what's happening?
No. I'm coming to
this
that.
is demand forecast, I got
demand.
that.
Now coming to the factory, and hence the importance of being able to do it at a low cost is always important, because the overall industry has huge amount of inventory, so there has been this thing. So doing it at a low cost is important. Yield is also very important, and having the right quality parameters, because you have to see whether your expiry date and all that thing, can it be enhanced and all. Apart from these standard things like yield, every company will want for a higher yield. Quality, every company would be looking for a better quality, and continuous improvement and operational excellence initiatives. In AgChem, the other difference, and I'm talking from my experience in pharma as well as in AgChem, the importance of safety becomes significant, because we are handling dangerous chemicals and dangerous gases, and leakage of any of them can lead to disasters. It is not only spoiling that factory, but it impacts lives. And the quality, why it is important? Because all pesticides are actually poisons. Now, we use pesticides to kill an insect or a pest, but a farmer's skin, if it gets there, it can be cancer, it can be, we consume the vegetables and the fruits which has pesticides, and it can affect human health. So, in fact, the regulatory approval process in AgChem is much, much more complex than in pharma, because in pharma you are only looking at the human health, but here you are looking at the environment, the farmer health, the end consumer health who takes the fruits and vegetables, as well as the soil and the pest killing and all. So the quality parameters have to be also very stringent at a low cost. So that is the key challenge, and then the safety. The POCs and all these things which we are looking at to make smart manufacturing possible in AgChem, ideal situation we would like to have is a lights out plant, where can we have a sophisticated plant where the complex processes work exactly as per the design parameters, and they are autonomous. Like in semiconductor industry and automotive industry, autonomous systems are, very this thing. But in chemical, where you are handling dangerous chemicals, having autonomous systems, self-correcting mechanisms, all these things are something new. But can we have that? And that is a problem which we want to solve. And globally, even the Bayer, BASF, Syngentas of the world have not done it. Can we do that, which will enhance quality and the safety? Knowing very well the fact that my input raw materials will not be always consistent, same quality. So my input raw materials will be varying quality, but my process parameters in the manufacturing and the end product should be of consistent quality. And therefore, there has to be these self-correcting mechanisms in the chemistry as we scale up. And ability to solve that is what we are looking at. How do we solve it? Where we get high yield, high productivity, consistent quality in that range, sharper range, and ensuring that it is very safe operations. And I can't re-emphasize this thing of safe operations. We do feel it is not that why lights out or why we want a human-less plant.
But in a sense, it would ensure more safety, right? Because the weakest link can be the human element. If it's automated after a lot of testing, it is the safest part of that link.
Yes, exactly. That is the thing. Even the material handling, when we handle dangerous chemical, put it in a reactor and all that thing, there could be dangerous things happening. We see that a person who is cleaning the equipment didn't follow the right processes, and there was an accident. We handle taking a lot of contractors who come from different places, and they might not be wearing the right safety gears. We have significant labor shortage. With the right qualified people, we think that we have a lot of manpower, but having the right skills, right training is also not.
So it will also be incumbent on technology solutions, the partners you work with, to create systems which are intuitive enough to address this issue of
skill. So on one hand, we are looking at how do we improve productivity, quality, ensure safety. How do we handle skill shortages by using technology as to augment it? I think Nandan Nilekani had written this book called Bridge Digital Nation, where one of the use cases, and more specifically for India, where the digital divide which was there, and then we needed to scale up the human capability, and can digital solutions, and more so AI-enabled solutions, can it jump up? Can it be a good assistant to the people who can improve their So the human capability plus the AI-enabled or technology-enabled capability, sum total, makes that person an expert. And I see a lot of need for that, because many of the engineers we are getting in the shop floor would take lot of years of experience to get to that proficiency. And this I have seen in my previous job in the pharma world. If I have to get a good fermenter who can do the fermentation properly, it comes with years of experience, and we don't have that time. And then can I take a junior person and augment his or her skill with technology, which becomes that.
Shorten the learning curve. All right. We have Namrata Mahindra of Aditya Birla Chemicals. Now, considering you're a global chemicals player with a diversified portfolio, I want to get your thoughts. Atanu has sort of set the ball rolling, but in terms of business resilience that we talk about, as we mentioned the use cases in terms of reducing downtime, I mean, those are all factory floor use cases, but you also have a vast vendor and partner ecosystem. So you have to make sure that your value chain presents data which enables you to take the right kind of decisions, whether it's predictive or whether it's curative. So what would you say, are the biggest barriers that you have found so far in terms of achieving operational resilience and this paradigm of leveraging the cloud? Because when it comes to scaling, the cloud is the answer. How is Aditya Birla Chemicals approaching this?
I think when we start looking at resilience, there is a structural shift which is happening today. And when I talk about the structural shift, I think there are those shifts happening at three levels. One is when you are looking at it from a skill point of view, right? And just building up on what Atanu said, you need to have people in the supply chain, whether it's procurement, whether it's logistics, whether it is people who are looking at S&OP. A lot of what they're doing today, as Atanu said, will be taken over by AI and other technologies in a lights out situation. So therefore, what is the role of the human being? The role of the human being to have a resilient, sustainable operation is really around becoming that data scientist, becoming that interpreter, like the chief digital transformation officer is that translator between business and tech. Similarly, I think if you start looking at this supply chain, value chain, you're going to find that a lot of those people will have to start interpreting what are the decisions that technology is taking. And therefore, those decisions, are they sort of, iteratively going in the right way? So having the human in the loop will become important to be able to make sure that, there are no mistakes which are made or no, incidents which could potentially happen because of a misrepresentation or a misunderstanding by technology. So that's one structural shift from a skill point of view that I see. The second one that I see is really in terms of a lot of the work that we are seeing in the supply chain. We were mostly focused on that first level of supplier partner, right? However, that landscape has changed because today, if at the nth level, somebody in the supply chain is not following sustainable practices or is not, adhering to safety norms, that has a domino effect across the value chain.
How do you resolve that? Because if your mission is zero defect, but you are seeing these issues arise in your value chain, as a leader, how do you deal with it?
So I think the first element for us is really to start looking at what is the risk that is put forth by every individual supplier. So really having a risk matrix, which can then be augmented by AI to start predicting what is the level of risk. It could be a quality risk, it could be a financial solvency risk, it could be a sustainability risk that is being posed with scope 3 now that has become a part of, when you look at BRSR, that has become a part of compliance and regulations.
And BRSR regulations have been enhanced, right?
Yes, exactly. So therefore, I think it becomes, and that's why I said it's a structural shift, because you need to then make sure that your entire value chain, is actually complying to certain standards is maintaining a particular threshold across the board. Whereas I'd say a couple of years back, you looked at one level below and one level, above, and you left the rest to the value chain. I think post-pandemic that has changed. So that's the second shift that I see happening in terms of building up the supply chain resilience. The third shift that I see happening is in terms of, so we've talked about people, we've talked about the ecosystem. The third thing is in terms of the processes. Now, when you start looking at the processes themselves, traceability has become extremely important. And that is another structural shift, because when you're looking at any of the manufacturing shop floor metrics, right? You're saying, I want to look at quality. Eventually, you need to have traceability back to, the starting point on the equipment.
You want more granular control.
Yeah, you want the granular control. If you're looking at, let us say, yarn, that's another part of the chemical sector that we have. You actually want to be able to go back to the forests. If you're looking at textiles, you want to go back to the forest where that, cotton came from, right? So therefore, or where that wood where the wood came from for the wood pulp, when you're looking at the yarn business. So given that, traceability becomes extremely important in terms of saying that, now this is not a nice to have. And when you look at down the value stream, if you look at global retail players like the Zaras, the H&Ms of the world, today they're expecting that.
They would expect that to come
that, you have the ability to trace back. So if I'm saying this is this viscose, can it actually be traced back to Aditya Birla? Can it actually be traced back to this forest that I'm claiming?
Folks are actually using the blockchain when it comes to traceability.
So another sister concern company within the group has already been doing that since 2018, 2019. So what I'm trying to say is that these are shifts which have been happening over the last 4 to 5 years. And I think we're going to see more of this in terms of building up that resilience and building up a competitive sort of resilience over a period of time.
And amid this massive structural shift with the three factors which you mentioned, whether it's people or process or ecosystem, what are some of the biggest gaps which, say, technological solutions can address? If you're speaking to Rahul and Kalyan, what cues would you give them that, guys, you need to focus on this? This is the biggest pain point that I as a leader face and would love to have something which solves that problem. What would you say?
Sure. So I think we'll come back to data. The story starts with data. And I think with a lot of the legacy organizations, data becomes a key challenge. So it is the quality of the data. It is what data are you collecting? Because every manufacturing organization will have lots of data. But when you start working backwards from a use case and you say, this is the data that I need to solve this particular problem, you suddenly find that that data is not being collected. That data is not available, right? So that's the second challenge. So quality, the actual data that you require, that is not available. And the third challenge is then the governance around that data, right? So while quality covers a large part of the governance, but then also it's a aspect of, saying, is this data actually being managed and maintained, very regularly? So if it is sitting in a silo with one division or with one function, they will take the ownership for their data. There'll be a second one which will take, second function which will take the ownership for their data. And you will potentially have, master data which are organized at a functional or at a business level. But when you start breaking down those silos and when you start looking at it from a perspective of saying, can I look at cross-functional insights coming through? That is where you will find, challenges, gaps in terms of, the data governance. Or when I say, okay, fine, I have, for example, 5 organizations who are sitting within the chemical sector. But if I go back, and this is more of an MDM challenge, which we all have, if I go back to the, different parts that you have, you will have for the same business, 4 plants or even 4 people within the same plant input that material differently, right? And that is a problem I don't think, at least I'm not aware of. If somebody can solve for that, I would love to know, how do you solve for that problem? Because you do the manual cleanup, you write some AI rules on top of it, but then after a point in time, X number of years later, you find that, those discrepancies start creeping in again. And we've done that cycle a couple of times. So it is still a problem that we face in terms of the data quality. How do you make sure that that happens? And the data silos, you'll have somebody introduce something new. You go back to definitions. When you look at KPIs, you ask people, what is the definition of, let us say, OTIF? And I can tell you the manufacturing head, the plant head, the logistics head, all three will have three different definitions. Unless and until you don't have that one standard definition, which is sort of, regurgitated and reiterated time and time again. And then, you come. So we've been through that journey. So I can say, we've reached a certain level of maturity, but this is very commonplace in terms of the challenges that we continue to face. We may have done it across one or two businesses. Is it true across all businesses? Maybe not.
So just on this, Namrata, I mean, while you have the challenges that you listed on the data side of things, are you foreseeing any of the challenges from a plant aspect, which is the physical asset that you have, where we see issues around predictive maintenance or failures or better OE capabilities, from an operational efficiency standpoint?
Sure. So I think we've been addressing that. So we have been going down that route of condition-based monitoring for our critical equipments. And again, the challenge with some of the equipments is that they are legacy equipments where there are no OEMs today who are supporting those equipments. So there it becomes even more critical to have that condition-based monitoring so that you can predict when there's a potential failure. And there have been benefits for the business in terms of, rightly predicting over a period of time what the potential failures are and therefore saving time and potential production loss as an opportunity cost. So those are some of the benefits that we've had. Apart from that, I think there's also this element of sort of electrolyzers for our chlor-alkali business are at the heart of the operation. So when you look at those two aspects that we worked on are around looking at the performance of those and enhancing those. So there was a time when we used to do it on Excel. Today we have, pulled all of that data together. We built models on top, and we've started looking at optimizing the performance and also looking at the lifetime of that particular equipment, because that becomes critical in terms of if there is X lifetime, but you are in a chemical environment, which is corrosive. So therefore, then it becomes important to be able to address some of those challenges. And that's where, again, having that predictive sort of, outlook helps take corrective measures to prolong the lifetime of that equipment.
Ram Narayan Parhi of Alchem Laboratories is here and is eager to share a point of view here. From your perspective, we've been discussing, these digital transformation challenges, but sort of looking into the minutiae, asset reliability, downtime, MROs. What's the sense that you're getting? Because pharma, as we've seen, another highly regulated sector, right? What are the problem areas that you're looking at?
I think Rahul mentioned about this OT-IT synergy, right? I think, first of all, while CIOs have been mostly involved in driving the IT strategy for companies, the OT involvements has been rather recent. Traditionally, the equipments were all electromechanical kind of equipments in 70s and slowly started adding the software components with embedded systems and all that. That happened in 1780s, and now in 2000s and 2020s, if you see, most of the equipments, OT equipments, have a significant IT component. And that's where now the trouble is starting, right? Because while the CIO is very focused on the top floor, not so much involved in the shop floor, and a lot of decisions are happening there, which is not keeping in mind the long-term enterprise value creation, right, for those kind of systems. And for technology, there is a huge challenge. See, you talked about intelligent, connected, sustainable manufacturing, right? Let's talk about connected, right? One of the biggest challenges today still in the industry is how do you connect to equipments? A lot of equipments, she talked about legacy, even new equipments. A lot of OEMs come up with their own systems, and in pharma it's regulated, so any change, anything you do, it has to be validated. It's a huge documentation and validation cycle. OT or engineers, right, they resist change. For them, something got set up, it has to just run. IT people, they love change, because every time there is a patch, obviously you apply the patch, right? So we thrive in change. No, of course, because we love change, right? In IT, every time there is an upgrade coming, do you stop? You immediately go ahead and upgrade your this thing, but you don't do that with the OT equipment, because something may go wrong, and this is a validated
So they operate
system.
in a glass half empty paradigm.
Absolutely. So we might be very keen to get them into the latest system, but then latest system means there is a validation, documentation, downtime. It's not possible, right? Production has to go on also, right? So that's definitely a big problem, right? A lot of the systems are Windows 7, XP, SE, what all things, they don't talk to each other. Now you want to connect, you want to collect the data. Connecting systems has become so difficult, right? And if somebody can come out with the framework that, okay, all these equipments by all these manufacturers, I can just easily connect. I can challenge you, you will struggle. We have been struggling to connect our production machines for last 18 months, right? We have probably connected 10, 12 machines. We are on the journey, but it's very painstaking, right? So unless you connect and you are able to get the data, how do you do the modeling? How do you do the golden batch, right? Of course, if you are setting up a new greenfield, plant, you have options to maybe get the best of the breed and all that. But typically in India, right, a lot of manufacturing companies have, set up factories since 20 years, 30 years. You cannot just immediately just switch one of the machines. They cost crores just to want to convert the software element, right? So that OT-IT synergy is just starting to, get built, and, getting the right framework to connect all these machines so that the data can come into a platform that is suitable for analysis. One simple challenge we are struggling with, and you can come up with some solutions. And the government of India wanted to reduce this duplicate drugs issue, right? So they said top 100 brands come up with a solution, QR code and all that, right? Now, if people can copy medicines, they can also copy QR codes.
The QR code.
So now our medicines are copied with QR codes, right? So unless you are able to really trace each strip from the manufacturing plant to the distributor, to the retailer, right, and to the consumer's hands, right, it is very difficult. Now these medicines are quite cheap, right? I mean, government also has a price control and all that, right? So now with what kind of technology you would be able to ensure, right, that your product cannot be duplicated, or let's say the consumer at least can check whether this is a spurious drug or not. Right? These are very, very wonderful challenges that any of the technology companies can pick up and say, okay, here is a setup, things you can do to fix it. We have done it in many ways. We have a QR code on a lot of our brands, but as I said, if you copy the QR code, you get the same value, right? So some of those challenges.
Ninad Raje is with us from Jaguar and Company. I want to get your sense of what we've been discussing so far. What I've noticed is while we are talking about traceability, we are talking about a lot of external facing things, but internally for the company, whether it's the factory floor or just the way it improves the way it produces things, what are the biggest challenges that you're looking at?
So I see it a bit differently. I don't see it as challenges. I see it all about opportunities.
Okay.
Right. So, and the moment we talk about opportunities, there is the sky is the limit, right? So how do we convert those challenges into opportunities is something which is a doctrine that we've adopted within our organization across the globe. Jaguar is obviously a 65-year young organization. Fortunately, we have a 65% market share, at least in India. Now we have expanded globally around 55 countries globally. So imagine the kind of magnitude and scale that we're talking about now. It's not only about India, but it's about the entire 55 countries. And we have plants located across the globe. Not only India, but across the globe. We were, in fact, having a chat earlier and we're talking about plants in South Africa, plants in South Korea, and so on. So they also have their own opportunities out there. You know, there is this economic, cultural, diversified challenges there. So how do we address those? Coming back to India, we have the following principles. We don't worry about our IT and OT and so on and so forth. What we worry about is customer experience. What we worry about is quality, you know, and that enables us to ensure that whatever we do on the shop floor, production floor, manufacturing units, the CIOs, our marketing guys, our CEOs and so on, so they are all aligned towards one cause for the organization, which is customer experience.
But it all boils back to whether you're planning for unplanned downtime, whether you're planning for asset reliability. Sure, CX is the goal.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, the value chain has to work in service of making sure that the customer gets the wow experience. But I want to know what's happening behind the scenes. Aapki jawani ka raaz kya hai?
Right, absolutely. That's right. And the reason I brought that customer experience is in order for us to deal with the customer experience, the backend has to work seamlessly. And here I'm going to talk now about the entire backend, how seamlessly it works. So recently what we did is we also embarked on this entire transformational journey, wherein, of course, the opportunities that we saw were about automation, were about predictive maintenance. So let's talk about this entire piece of predictive maintenance first. Traditionally, we were struggling with maintenance of all our plants or machinery or parts and so on and so forth, right? So we entirely changed our way of working. So we looked outward. So fortunately, we have a lot of alliances in Germany and Italy and so on and so forth. So we brought a lot of heavy machinery, automation, robotics from the European markets. We installed it out here. And to your point, which you're absolutely bang on, we may have found a solution to that, because the moment we talk about, and it's not greenfield, it's obviously not even brownfield. We have legacy equipment, we have legacy machinery and so on and so forth. So how do we smartly connect the legacy equipment with the modern age, modern era machinery and robotics, right? So that is something which we did. And the connectivity is currently very seamless. However, that brings us to another point of major concern, which is security, right? Data security. The moment we talk about connected devices, the moment we talk about IT and OT coming together, and we are having OT devices, security is a major concern. Now, to your point of, say, for example, manufacturing in the back end, production, and so on and so forth, we look at predictive maintenance in such a fashion that it helps us before a equipment or a machinery fails. And we have put such thresholds in our system at least a week in advance. It starts giving us alerts. And we have done that as of now, right? And so from a traditional methodology of somebody going to the shop floor, doing the maintenance, understanding whether this machine is equipped for the next release or not, the system is now assisting us, giving the alerts. So what we do is we then have these parts and components ready, handy, and we replace it. And to be very honest, there is no human intervention. There was a time when we had in a plant almost around 3,000 blue-collared workers. We have now rebatched them to another plant, but this one plant is completely automated. We have 3 people now. So 3,000 now coming down to 3 people. Wow. And that is on the back of all automation, back of our learnings that we derived, and especially the implementation of predictive maintenance.
And are you replicating that across all the plants in the world? That's the goal that you're looking at.
That's right. So because what happens in, of course, we did a lot of POCs, a lot of organizations, and of course, this is not a singularity that we are talking about, right? So we took a lot of help and support from obviously people like, IBM and so on and so. We haven't worked with you, but similar, when people who are into similar businesses, right? So
what do they need to do to make them work with you?
Absolutely. Come over, we can do POCs. We have other plants, we have gazillion plants to operate. And
one or two POCs that you could share. In your opinion, what's something that they could share of value to you in a particular POC which you find of relevance? Because we are talking about, let's say, asset management in the cloud for a multinational company like yours. Right. That is a sort of a default
One aspect
option.
Is what we traditionally call as stockouts. You know, so how do we manage to reduce the stockouts? How do we make sure that our inventory is always full? Our inventory is full with the relevant counts and requirements as per the market, on time, on demand. And we don't want to kind of store, and we don't want to have inventory with us, stockpile of inventory, because that also has its own challenges, right, in terms of the price points and monetary outgo and so on and so forth. So we want to get into a mechanism wherein we have anytime, every time, on demand, just in time rather, all right, inventory with us. So that will allow us to reduce our cost, warehouses and so on and so forth, right? Space constraints. All of us face space constraints in the plant, in the warehouses and so on and so forth. That is one use case that we can definitely talk about. And this I'm talking about on a global basis. I'm not kind of limiting ourselves to India, but on a global basis. The trick is to get all these things connected, enabled, driven, appropriate POCs done. However, it has to work globally. Then we are talking. Otherwise, if we just talk about one plant or one warehouse, it doesn't make sense at all. We have hundreds and thousands of warehouses. We have so many plants, several plants all across the globe. We want to do that. So that is something which we are looking forward to, right? And I keep coming back to the customer experience because that has really helped us drive our internal processes so that we can provide the excellent, the fabulous experience that we are talking about from the customer standpoint. One more point that I'm talking about is we are extremely quality conscious, right? When we talk about quality consciousness, maybe we are the only company in our space, you know, I'm sure others would also be doing it, but in our space who conducts 100% quality. There is no random quality happening here. And to be very honest, if there is a flaw after implementation, after installation, no questions asked, we just replace it. So we are not going to repair it, we're just going to replace it. And then go back and have that learning, what happened here. You know, so that is something which we are certainly looking forward to. So that's the second POC that we are talking about. The third POC we're talking about is this entire AI and ML concept. We are toying around with this entire mechanism. There are a couple of POCs already happening. More the merrier. Whoever can come in and help us out in the long run, not in the short run, we should be able to shake hands and get going. Because this entire we keep talking about AI, but then we really need to see it working at the shop floor. You know, and the AI and the ML that we're talking about should be completely automated. It should run the plant on itself. It should alert us, notify us before a calamity happens. You know, and third thing is obviously the improvement of productivity, efficiency, no casualties. All those things come into picture. Recently, in fact, we installed this AI-enabled ASRS. Now, ASRS is automated storage retrieval system, right? Massive, because we have one plant which is 200 acres. So imagine that kind of magnitude and the quantum. We produce almost like 7,000 products every day, every single day, you know, which get shipped across the globe. So we need this automation to coming in, right? So we did that. However, we implemented this almost around 4 years back, but now we already embarked on a journey of making sure that how do we get in this AI, how do we use those ML algorithms to reduce cost, to increase the efficiency, productivity, reduction of casualties, maybe reduction of cost because of less of manpower, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so that is something which we're looking forward to. The last piece is about the global operations, right? Because it's an Indian-born, a true born and bred Indian MNC, to be very honest, right? And we expanded so rapidly as of now. We're looking for centralized capability of centralized monitoring of all our IT plus OT systems, all the OT devices as well. Like you rightly pointed out, nowadays it's a combination of, no more it's only IT, it's a combination. The CIO is responsible for IT plus OT, IoT devices coming into picture, and so that is something which you're looking forward to. But what is currently lacking is the centralized monitoring, tracking, maintenance, remote capabilities for the plant across the globe, for the warehouses across the globe. So sitting here, we should be able to monitor and track everything. You know?
A single dashboard.
Yeah, and an incident and alerts and notifications before an incident happens. That is what we're looking forward to. We're not looking forward to
Not
for a
reactive, but predictive.
post facto. We are talking about pre-facto. We are talking about here and now, before something goes wrong. And that is the use case that we're looking for. Because otherwise, I mean, we are already chip shape. I mean, it's already there. 65 years we are doing this, and yeah, so we're looking forward to that, and we're more than happy to shake hands, get the POCs done. If it works successfully for a long term, sky's the limit.
You've got an extensive shopping list. A quick reaction from you.
You bet. I mean, and first of all, congratulations on it's such an amazing brand. I mean, and we're all really proud of an Indian brand really going global. And I honestly, I didn't know you were a 65-year-old brand. Yeah, 65-year young brand. You know. So I just wanted to pick on one aspect which you talked about, which was quite interesting. And you talked about the predictive maintenance. You talked about the equipment maintenance, where you do the preventive in terms of changing of parts. I mean, one of our customers, rather, it was an interesting bit, where he had an equipment, and the OEM had kind of instructed them to change a particular part every 7 months. Okay, and this is where the health monitoring comes in which could potentially be something that we could look at when you're talking about centralized monitoring of your IT/OT systems. The anecdote was, we did a POC, and it was a successful POC. The problem statement was, do we really need to change the part every 7 months? So you get a beep, which is system, which is created that alert, the OEM wants to sell you the parts, and when we actually did the health monitoring, we figured out that the part could have run for another 11 months. So where it was 7 months or 6 months that they were replacing it at, it could actually run for 18 months. And these are areas where we are starting to see even companies or organizations which have gone advanced in terms of IT/OT integration, in terms of predictive, in terms of anomaly detection and all of that, have still not been able to address the health side of things. So yeah, I mean, we'd be more than happy to come in and have a discussion around the centralized bit of it.
Absolutely, and this thought germinated from the fact I had the recent opportunity to visit Europe in the Ferrari plant, right? And it's fabulous, to be very honest. And if anybody gets an opportunity, you all should go and visit that. And the reason I visited that is because they are quite up there in terms of their automation, their AI sort of adaptability as well, right? And so they have a process, so they have implemented this IoT, AI, ML, you name it, and they have it, yeah. And there are only 2 people there in the plant, massive plant. And I could see what kind of predictive maintenance is going on there. The reason they only have 2 people out there is because anything is done by the systems, all right, including the replacing of the parts. If at all it has gone bad, replacement also is done by the robots and all. Of course, we are far out in reaching that particular point. Someday, sometime we should be able to. But if we have to reach even very close to that, we need people like you all to come in and help us out in doing it, because we have a vision. We want to do it. We want to execute it. And we will want to adopt it as well. If you have products, if you have the service capability, we can shake hands. We have the business to give, and then we can take it forward from there. To be very honest, I'm being very candid here. Yes, there's a need. There's a requirement. There are a lot of people who approach. They come in. They commit, promise POCs and so on and so forth. They dabble around it as well. Ultimately, there are no results. So POC is one. Working POC is another, but it has to be appropriately executed, implemented, and gone live with the success parameters that we're looking at, right? And for the long term is what we're looking forward to.
All right.
Yeah?
Rahul, you have a point to add.
I've been kind of thinking about the points that Ram created and Namrata mentioned and you. I think this is really one of those classic scenarios where you're trying to marry not just the IT and OT, but now thinking about what's going to be the next level of what you already have created, right? In terms of, in terms of AI and infusing of AI, and I think that's where exactly partnerships with companies like Microsoft and hyperscalers become really a critical part of this, considering that both IBM and Microsoft bring in a lot of value on those areas. For example, if I have to say, our flagship products like Maximo now come with a lot of infused AI features which could really help you do a lot of monitoring and the predictive maintenance issues. But I think the crux of the matter, we all are talking about building AI systems here, and as probably one of the matured organizations here, you probably take it as a granted phenomena. But one of the key aspects is to have a robust enterprise-wide data strategy in place, because I think that's going to be your backbone. And I think Namrata mentioned this, that it is all about the data that's being created. For me, I think I heard this beautiful quote: data is like oxygen. It gets created every day and it gets consumed every day. So how are we really contributing to creating more and more oxygen to consume in the rightful manner? And then looking at also a lot of governance-led mechanisms to all the systems that we are putting in place, including a lot of AI models. And every organization has a complex infrastructure. You have a complex OT infrastructure, you have a complex IT infrastructure. How do you create seamless integrations to manage everything in single place and being able to drive those pieces together? So that's my 2 cents, but amazing insight shared by all of you. Thank you.
To introduce to our viewers, Mejabeen Taj Alam from Rakem RPG. Mejabeen, you've had the opportunity to listen to everyone. Now I want to get your response to all these talking points that have come about, because of course the need of the hour is real-time visibility, automation, traceability. So when we look at what smart manufacturing will be from here on, and in terms of the use cases which you are actively looking at to solve for the issues that Rakem RPG faces, you're in the engineering solutions and services business. What would you say? What's your shopping list, so to say, as inputs for the gentleman sitting beside me?
Sure. My shopping list is running on a budget, first of all. So
that's a good point. Balancing cost and innovation. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So all the 3 points that you mentioned, we are doing all 3 as of today. So we are working with AI. We are working extensively with IoT. We are ourselves working on producing a smart product at our end. So we have a transformer business and we are working on having a smart transformer. So one of the example which you were mentioning, wherein you mentioned that, there is a certain customer who had been told by the OEM that, you replace this part every 7 months. In our case, when we have our customers, for genuine reasons, we tell them that, okay, you need to operate this transformer in these conditions and, with these parameters. But sometimes we get claim requests within the warranty period saying that, there has been some fault. And there's no way for us to figure out whether the customer has actually operated the transformer the way they have been advised to or not. And so we kind of, went on the path of saying that, okay, we are going to get into the business of manufacturing smart transformers. We already have the sensors in place. Why not collect the data in the central command center and figure out that whether a predictive, maintenance is up there? Is there something which is not being done right, which we can, kind of centrally monitor and look at? And we have been working on all these aspects. There's a lot that in the shop floor that we have been doing and toying with. There are a lot of multiple POCs running. So we, like Ninad mentioned, that, quality and customer experience is something that they focus on. I think all of us want to, kind of focus onto that. And so we try to, kind of reduce our COPQ by improving the quality on the production line. And when we do that, we are using computer vision AI to kind of, run on our production line for quality testings. And we try to figure out how we can, better our quality management and not just eyeball certain inspections and checks during quality. Like Namrata mentioned about traceability. Traceability is a huge aspect even for us. So like we also manufacture gas meters. Now in gas meters, let's say for example, we have recently gone live with a traceability line where we want to really kind of get back to the point where we know that, okay, this gas meter had a quality complaint from the customer. Am I able to trace it back to the exact batch for which these were the raw materials which were incoming, which I had utilized, these have come in from these suppliers, and to figure out what has actually gone wrong. And all of this, like she mentioned, I think everybody else here, whoever is talk has mentioned, you cannot build onto that until you have your data in place, because AI is only going to give you patterns when you are going to have data. It's only going to make sense then. So while we work on all those things in a very sporadic manner, in a very, you can say, distributed kind of a manner, we are also simultaneously working on a data strategy where, like, Rahul rightly mentioned that you have to work on, first of all, building that data. Most of the data in our case would be manual. Because on the shop floor, unless you have an MES in place, things are either written down on a piece of paper. Most of the times nobody bothers to come back and punch it into a system. Majority of the times you don't even have a system to punch it into. And that's how all that good data is lost, which can eventually, get into an analytics tool where it can actually give you some insights.
So how does that sync with your cloud? If you have embarked on a cloud journey, how are you addressing these issues?
We are almost 100% on cloud. We are huge believers in the SaaS model. I personally believe that being in the SaaS model is like achieving nirvana. Like, they tell you that achieving nirvana is like let go. So let go of the control of your data to a SaaS or a cloud model, because then you can actually focus on the stuff that you want to do. Right?
So in terms of this asset management, MRO and all these themes that we've been talking about, what's the benefit that you've seen of being in the cloud? Is it affording you a single dashboard view? What are the benefits or what are the gaps still remaining in your opinion?
So in our cloud, what we have today is, again, like I said, data, but in a very distributed manner. So my ERP today is SaaS based. So my entire ERP data is on cloud. All the other peripheral applications that we kind of try and onboard, we see if we have a SaaS option available. If yes, we go for it first. Even the digital solutions that we deploy on our shop floors with our partners, we check if they have a SaaS solution available, so that once the data is generated on the digital project, it can also go into the cloud. So the data is there, and like I said, while we're working on the data strategy of kind of building onto a data warehouse where I can eventually get a 360-degree view of everything that I'm doing, cloud is going to be a huge enabler in that. I don't think without cloud it's even possible for us to, kind of even think in that direction. So today we are already reaping the benefits of cloud from the point of view, if I have to answer specifically to your question, is that I don't have to focus on the management part of it. We try and onboard partners which are SOC certified in majority of the cases. So I don't have to bother about the security aspect of it because somebody is taking care of it. And when I was saying that, my shopping list is on a budget, that was precisely because that sometimes we have to go with partners who are smaller because of cost restrictions. And in those cases, we do not get SaaS options. We will not get SOC certifications. And then again, we have to trouble ourselves with all those things which essentially, a hyperscaler is supposed to help us out with. So multiple things going on there. We ourselves, like I said, are working on predictive maintenances through bringing those products into the market. But while we say that, even for our rest of the product lines, that's a need for us as well, on which we are working. We are also doing multiple POCs. Some of them are even live, where we, and majority of the machines that we have, they will have sensors onto them. Now, the point is that to what extent can I use the data? If they are old machines, like I think Ram was mentioning that, all of us would have plants would be like decades, multi-decades old, which means that the machines would be older machines. I don't know if I have the option to connect to their PLCs or not, whether the PLCs have even been provided to us or not. And then you go back and you figure out, whether you can have that connectivity. All the new age machines that we get in, the monitoring traceability is easy peasy. It's just about spending money. For all our old assets, the project is much more tougher. It takes much more time. The details that we can collect are limited. So yes, there are legacy problems that we face, and like he said, connectivity. एक में WinXP है, एक में 7 है, एक में 10 है, एक में something outdated is there. If there's something which can connect with all, which I don't even know if it's possible, but whichever way we can connect with, that's probably going to bring a lot of...
It's easier to make people talk to each other than technology talk to each other.
No, people are still more difficult.
Understand will be more difficult.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rahul, you have a point to it.
Yeah,
Especially, I believe you have a point to counter, especially when it comes to balancing cost and innovation.
No,
It's
I
not
think,
always the smaller players.
This is really, in a way, music to my ears, because this is something that we from a technology provider point of view keep thinking about it. That how do we innovate and take the onus of managing IT, to ourselves, and let the people from the domain do what we want to focus on, and keep them around. But I think what you are saying, Azabeen, is more about having a robust enterprise-wide asset management platform, which basically could be scalable from an operations standpoint, because obviously that's going to be, and obviously to the legacy questions, right? Obviously, there's going to be always a point wherein you decide that from today onwards, we will move all the platform data to something that we would want to use and go ahead with it, and that becomes your backbone for all the data strategy that you want to build, or the AI modeling that you build, or even the predictive and models that you want to go for. And I think the whole idea, when I think about this lights out plant, is about automation in a way wherein the robust data strategy and predictive maintenances and zero downtime kind of play together to achieve the goal that we are setting. So I think that's the vision, I guess, we are painting for the whole manufacturing in terms of smartness that we want to bring in.
See, in fact, for maintenance, and I'll just deliberate another one more minute. We have even, toyed with asset management softwares and, maintenance tools, tried integrating them with our ERP as well. Because I'm sure all of us would have use cases wherein while we track maintenances, we are not able to, kind of track down the cost of a certain maintenance to a machine level. I don't know if we have those kind of integrations or systems in place. So we struggle with that. If I understand the tool that you have correctly, and if it's about maintenances and managing assets, etc., probably the things which can bring value for manufacturing is not just to be able to kind of track them, but to or to manage them in a digital format, but also to be able to help us figure out why this is happening, where it is happening much, and if it can give us insights into by tracing back the cost to that maintenance, as in what can we do about it. So we have toyed with softwares as well. Not much success. They exist in us, environment today, and we'd be happy to kind of see what your solution has to offer on that.
So if I may just come in there.
Sure.
So what we are essentially talking about here is in terms of having a platform which can do the entire thing, from not just monitoring it, but to manage it, to predict the health, to visualize, to be. I mean, I'm talking about when I say visualize, I'm talking about visual inspection, which is essentially going to a lights off kind of a model, to IoTizing the devices, and to get it all in a single dashboard. To his point a little while earlier, you have multiple plans, and how do you get all of the information in one area? I mean, is that something that really excites you, which can take care of quality and all of that?
The only point I leave you with is that we would much appreciate it, because on certain lines of ours where we've been trying to collect those data from our machines, and we want to run some statistical process controls to figure out from a quality point of view what's happening, what's going wrong, we are struggling. So we're not able to kind of get the parameters or track those kind of parameters which we want to.
Yeah, so the simple thing is that it's not just an asset management play; it is going to be an asset performance play as well, right? So it has to be a combination of that. Anyway, we'll talk more on that.
All right, let me come to you, Rahul. You've been waiting very patiently. Rahul Borse, RPG Life Sciences. Pharma is always exciting. We've heard dynamics from different sectors, from AgChem to home appliances. Will come up shortly. And what Ramnarayan had mentioned, some themes earlier. But in this aspect that we discuss of balancing cost and innovation, especially when we look at digitizing a lot of the asset management solutions, what are the key challenges that you're looking at from an RPG Life Sciences perspective? What are the gaps that you feel are necessary, which can be at least addressed by the gentleman sitting here?
So being pharmaceutical, so nowadays we are calling it as a life sciences. Now nobody is mentioning pharmaceuticals. Now we are a life sciences. Imagine if we are manufacturing tablet and capsule renew, we are not counting a failure or in a percentage. Any single percentage will could lead into the death of the people. And you can see into the market any wrong medicine is a very small percentage, is a minute percentage is taking the life of the people. So we have to be, being a life sciences industry, we have to be very careful in terms of putting any technology. Okay, so there are challenges, and still we are in the race of the digital transformation, IoT and ML, but there are the challenges. For example, starting with data silo. We have data from the clinical trials to R&D, then R&D to manufacturing to the supply chain, and then to the customer. And that data is in silo, okay, because clinical data is not talking with R&D data, data is not talking with the manufacturing data. R&D data and manufacturing data, there are the reasons, there may be the reason that logical reasons, some we are not talking to each other, and from manufacturing data is not talking to my SCM data. And that data silo is creating the problem in pharmaceutical. So I'm not
so how
getting
does this ecosystem problem get solved, in your opinion? Because we did see a lot of changes happening in your sector, especially during the COVID years, right, where a lot of things had to be accelerated, and in a sense you were forced to go digital. So in the 3 or 4 years that we have progressed since, why is the ecosystem not changing as fast as it should, if every other industry is doing it?
Yes, there are the reasons. So for example, I'm giving the one simple example. For example, first of all, I need the data to just the way Ram is mentioned. To get the data is the challenge, and how tough it is. I have one CDS system, right? In that CDS system, I need to get the data, because all the digital transformation pharma is doing is around the product efficacy, for product quality, right? The way I mentioned, small percentage mistake could lead to the death for the people, right? So that particular efficacy, to maintain the efficacy, I am just playing around all my digital transformation, AI, ML around the this. So in my CDS system, so in that CDS system, my analysis data is going on there, and that CDS system is propriety of the particular OEM. Data is with that particular OEM. For example, Empower or Chromelian. That data is propriety. Only that OEM can, exchange the data. If I have time to get the data, I will not get the data. All right, and that is the challenge. To get the data, now I have to coordinate with OEM, get the data. But I personally, in my previous company, tried to get the data from some CDS system. It took me around 4 months to connect these people on the only subject that कि boss ये तो data मांगने वाला है. And
आपके खुद के, what about your own enterprise, right? When we look at it from a, let's say, minimizing stockouts of waste, at least that you can look at from a stronger digitization.
Yeah. So we are doing some POCs on creating some data lake, getting the data from the manufacturing. So in our case, manufacturing data is also in some legacy batch manufacturing record to convert digital. Then digitalization is a challenge. So we are getting the data wherever we have the CDS system from there, and the data which is in manufacturing shop floor, we are converting into the digital one first, and then creating the data lake. Okay, and that data lake then based on the data structure, data, overall. In also, we have also challenged data, unstructured data and structured data. That is a big story too, and big topic to discuss. We have a structured data first of all, and then we're getting the structured data out of it and creating the data lake. And after the data lake, then we can build our analytics, and then whatever we would like to build on top of it, right? So particularly, I am doing one POC where I am getting the data from the R&D. I am getting the data, some data from the quality, and 100% data from the manufacturing, and making it meaningful.
All right. It's great to see all these examples and POCs being shared because, as I mentioned earlier, it's a sort of a therapy session. Kusro, we've got folks from different sectors sharing their experiences in terms of what is required from a smart manufacturing perspective. Considering you're the technology leader at GM Modular, let's make this discussion a bit more electric, especially as time runs out on this. So, your thoughts on what we've been discussing so far in terms of specific use cases, right? But minimizing waste, making sure the shop floor is effective, making sure your value chain, whether it's vendors and so on and so forth, are up to sniff when it comes to your systems and processes. In this context of balancing cost and innovation, making sure your asset management is robust, it's in the cloud so that it allows you to scale up. What's the GM Modular perspective on this?
GM Modular, I would say, is very much in its nascent stages. All right. To a large extent, the company has grown too big too fast.
I'm noticing similarities with what Ninad had mentioned. It's a 65-year young company.
Yeah.
Yours is a company at its nascent stage, even though it is quite established.
Yeah. I would say the hype about the product is much better. Okay, rather than the manufacturing side of it, because we are expanding big time in manufacturing. We're setting up, I think, 2 plants right now. Okay, one in just outside Vasai, which is called Pelhar, and one in Hyderabad and one in Vijayawada. So they are LED wires, switches. But when I say nascent, means the machinery is excellent. It has all the bells and whistles to provide data. But we have never utilized that data. We have never captured the data, right? And when you talk about switches and accessories, there's a lot of plastic parts where you need to combine it with heat in order to get the right color and everything. But also there's wastage. And the wastage basically goes back into recycling, but it's not done in a very empirical, scientific manner. It goes back based on somebody eyeballing the wastage and saying, yeah, it's good enough to go back and reutilize it. The second thing is all these dyes and machinery which we have, even extrusion machinery has an LED, specifically LED manufacturing. LEDs are becoming a more or less like a fast consumable product in the market today. Okay, if you're late by 18 days, guess what? Your wattage is no longer required in the market. So it's all about the supply chain. It's all about how fast you can manufacture, how fast you can get into the market, but at the same time ensuring that the market is ready to accept that is also another challenge. So yes, we are on the cloud. Okay, in fact, to a large extent, I joined the company about a year back. And coming from Eureka Forbes was a big changeover. But the company is investing quite a lot.
So what are some of the interesting POCs that you can share with us?
Well, for the first thing we did is I moved the entire company from a SAP Business One system onto S/4HANA Rise.
Okay.
Straight off. Okay, in 6 months we implemented it. Okay, of course hell broke loose in the company, but all right. But we did it and we completed in 6 months. Okay, and SAP themselves absolutely said we are surprised that it happened. But we have a huge amount of SKUs, huge. Okay, on an average it's about 44,000 SKUs which we have.
So from an asset management perspective, what are the POCs that would interest you?
Asset management, we've tried to do, basically we are utilizing SAP. All right, and sales and operations planning and all of that is non-existent today. It's on Excel spreadsheets. All right. So I think the company is going to grow in its maturity through that. The manufacturing specifically has got to become smarter, much more smarter, okay, than where we are today.
Is it an industry problem in your particular case? It's a sectoral problem
it's
where
a
lot of your
right
players
now.
are in the same level,
category.
so therefore
Yeah.
there's no need to kind of transform radically.
No, it does need transformation radically, because when you look at the costs and supply models, okay, the financial jaws, okay, when it should be positive in nature, that means that coming closer together, they are showing divergence. which is causing a problem. So your cost of manufacturing, okay, and the cost of retention of that particular product becomes higher. And that's what impacts the bottom line. And I think that's where I think the company is going through a transformative phase. How do we get our equipment to provide data? And we are in the cloud, so it's not a problem of not being in the cloud. The question is also about the maturity of the company. Okay, and that is where it's going through those phases. Okay, understanding that IT is not just about it as an enabler. It's actually a very large, important piece of a cogwheel, which actually turns the business around. So, you know, and I can go about manufacturing, I can go about sales and distribution and everything. But everything comes together because ultimately it's the factory which produces, the factory which supplies. And that's where we are not very good at right now at ensuring that the right product hits the right market.
All right.
Right? And I think that's where I believe that companies like IBM can play an important part in guiding, and Microsoft, of course, through the cloud, in guiding and implementing solutions as partners rather than as vendors.
One question too. So I mean, again, when you talked about challenges in terms of how fast you can manufacture, what exactly is the problem that you're facing?
Let me give you an example of LEDs. Okay, so we have very sophisticated equipment which actually manufactures LED. But when it comes to regression testing, for example, the lifeline of a LED bulb, how long will it last? That's all done through a machinery, but the data which comes out is not captured anywhere. So it's all about on the quality of the lighting when it comes out from regression testing is actually eyeballed by somebody and saying, yeah, this is good enough. All right. But when this is done empirically through data, okay, and we know the machinery can provide the data, right? It is IoT enabled, it is everything, it has PLCs and everything, and it's state of the art, basically. But we are not utilizing it to the capacity which we should.
All right. Let me just get some summary statements from everyone. Usually these things end with a way ahead, looking at the crystal ball kind of a question. So maybe a point on what each one of you sees in 30 seconds as the top headline as India evolves to become a smart manufacturing hub. Maybe Namrata, we'll start with you, your thoughts, and then we'll go around the table but a 30-second view if we can get from you.
Sure. So I think as we look at the future of manufacturing, I think it's about making sure that we go up in the value chain. That is going to become important. Making those investments in R&D is going to become important for us to be able to, create that IP, which creates the differentiation. And there's a role that digital can play in that also. And I would say that for manufacturing, for the manufacturing future and for it to contribute to the GDP, in a significant manner beyond what it does right now, it'll be important to see a lot more skilling happening in this domain. So I think those would be the three sort of top areas for me.
All right, Ramnarayan, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I am very excited about the application of AI in significantly changing the way we do work. It's still to become commonplace. It's still probably 2 years before we leverage AI to the potential. But I'm absolutely thrilled with the POCs and the kind of solutions that AI promises for us. In India, manufacturing definitely needs to evolve. I think some of the leading companies like Jaguar are obviously showing the way of how to become a globally competitive manufacturing hub. There is no doubt that unless you are globally competitive, you will not survive. So, the way forward is obviously the use of technology, but again, balancing technology with the rate of change, right, is a big issue. Like if you talk about the industrial revolutions, right, that took hundreds of years, maybe 100 years for the first industrial revolution, another 100 years for the second, maybe 50 years for the third. But if you look at every 10 years nowadays, we are having revolution, right? The AI has broken into the scene in 2 years. It is just completely changing the way we do things. And as humans, it's not very easy to adapt to that change.
All right.
And as technology leaders also, it is very difficult to wrap around your head and decide whether I should bet on this technology and go ahead, or I should wait it out and then see the hype cycle, right? So that is going to be a big balancing act, and nothing is going to be easier on the CIOs for that.
All right, a balancing act indeed. Ninad, while as Ram mentioned that while you are a 65-year-old company, India is also in its Amrit Kal. We are 75-year young. So in terms of this vision of India evolving to become a smart manufacturing hub, what's the big headline that you see?
I think, yeah, absolutely bang on. From a smart manufacturing standpoint, a lot of opportunities, complete automation, bringing in this entire realm of AI and ML. I think manufacturing sector may be lagging in adopting AI and ML. The banking sector, BFS sector, they are way ahead as of now. But we are not we're close by. Okay. So I think the AI and ML is going to be the trick along with the IoT automation as such. And that is something which I would suggest we should focus on. All right. It will reap a lot of rewards for us. And obviously it is going to help us from the global standpoint, because globally AI is going to take over everywhere. It is already happening. And if we are not able to do it, then we are going to be far behind. And we should not allow to do that as well.
Mejabi, let's hear your perspective on where you see India in its smart manufacturing journey in the next, say, 5 years. What do you see?
Very simply put, connected factory, starting right from product development till customer service, with a very robust IT and OT security.
That's the headline.
That's achieved.
Rahul, your thoughts, your headline on India's smart manufacturing ambition and vision. What do you think is going to be, making the headline in the next 5 years?
Quality products.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we have to be competent and to be in the market, so you have to be quality reliable. So I would say quality is the one.
Quality is going to be king. All right. Khusro, your thoughts on this?
Execute. Speed. If India needs to reach that stage, we have to be much faster, much more resilient. And to your point, okay, we have to be aware of the cybersecurity threats. AI is great, but AI also has its limitations.
All
right? And we have to understand AI, utilize it to the best of their abilities, but also understand the negative parts of it. But in my opinion, it's speed of operations.
All right.
Execute. Only then can India reach a stage.
Go to market is going to
go to market. It can possibly rival China, but we have to have speed of execution and the discipline to execute it.
All right, let me sew up the loose ends of this conversation by coming to you, Rahul and Kalyan. Rahul, we'll start with you first. In terms of future-proofing manufacturing, how can, say, partnerships like IBM and Microsoft help customers? What's your parting thought for this conversation?
No, I think firstly, these are all relevant points specifically to achieve a very connected manufacturing vision as we'll think about it. The key areas I think are, looking at enterprise asset integration. That's one of the key areas, breaking up silos and integrating data so that it's widely available for you to do whatever is required. Having a robust data strategy and, leveraging innovations with partnerships like IBM and Microsoft. I mean, think about Maximo working with Azure digital twins to kind of drive the future of manufacturing kind of scenarios. I think those are the areas where we can really play a major role in helping. And digital transformation is all about people, process, and technology. And I think technology and partnerships across all these areas would really play a major role. So that's my parting thought.
Fantastic. Kalyan, your roadmap.
To your point, I think I'll go with that, and I'll go with the theme, which is intelligent, connected, and sustainable. So I firmly believe that we are in a sweet spot when it comes to manufacturing. I know we had an ambitious goal of 16% GDP going up to 25. Now we are moving it to 2030, which was 2026. But I believe we are firmly in a place where we could get to the 25% GDP by 2030. and towards that, we will do our bit from a technology standpoint to make it more intelligent, make it more quality driven, make it more sustainable, and I believe we have the technology both from an AI standpoint and to address some of the data issues that we just talked about here today.
All right, miles to go before we sleep. On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this conversation. Thank you so much to everyone for sharing with us their insights. Well, to thrive in this evolving landscape and achieving sustainability objectives, manufacturers, we have learned today, must adopt advanced technologies like digital twins and artificial intelligence at scale. And of course, these innovations can enable organizations to streamline operations, boost productivity, and minimize environmental impact. And of course, by effectively harnessing the power of data and real-time insights, manufacturers can accelerate India's path as the factory of the world. And we sure hope that India achieves that objectives. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Till next time, this is your host Gautam Srinivasan signing off. Have a great day.
IBM and Microsoft, the future of manufacturing, in association with CNBC-TV18.com.